There is a strange rhythm to conversation. Words arrive from the mouth before the mind has fully dressed them in meaning, before the heart has decided whether it agrees with them, before the conscience has approved their release. We speak, and then we realize what we have spoken. In this way, talking is not unlike stepping into a river in the dark. We feel the current only after our foot has landed, and only then do we decide whether it was wise to step at all. Most of us have lived through the peculiar sting of hindsight. A discussion with a friend ends, a debate at work closes, an argument with a partner dissolves in silence, and then, later, in the solitude of a commute home or in the quiet of the kitchen, our minds perform a cruel miracle. Suddenly, the exact words we should have said materialize with perfect clarity. The ideal counterpoint, the elegant phrase, the devastatingly witty remark, all waiting patiently, far too late to serve their purpose. And with that clarity comes regret, sometimes sharp enough to linger for hours, sometimes so dull it becomes background noise in our memory of the day. This is not mere clumsiness of the tongue. It is the nature of being human. To understand why the better thought often arrives late, we must look at the machinery of the mind itself, and at the competing demands it juggles whenever two people dare to exchange words. Speech, to survive in the stream of conversation, must be fast. Silence is heavy, in social terms it feels like failure. Pauses longer than a breath can feel like a collapse in connection, an awkward gap through which unease creeps. To prevent this, the brain pushes words out quickly, often before they are polished, sometimes before they are even fully coherent. What emerges is not a finished idea but a prototype, a draft offered in real time. This immediacy is both a gift and a curse. It keeps conversation alive, allows us to improvise, to build dialogue as though weaving a cloth together, thread by thread. But it also robs us of the luxury of reflection. A spoken sentence cannot be revised, it flies forward and lands as it is, whether graceful or clumsy. Unlike the written word, there is no backspace key. The thoughts that arrive later, the brilliant comeback, the precise argument, the perfectly weighted phrase, are products of a slower system. Cognitive psychologists sometimes describe two systems of thought, the fast, intuitive one that leaps ahead, and the slow, deliberate one that reasons and refines. In the heat of interaction, the fast system dominates, because it must. Only afterward, when the body is calm and the stakes no longer press against our chest, does the slow system begin its careful work. It reviews, revises, and discovers possibilities that the quick-fire brain could not produce under pressure. This delay is why our better words arrive in the evening, or in the shower, or as we lie in bed rehearsing an alternate version of the day. The conversation has ended, but the mind continues the work, sketching dialogues that will never be spoken. In this sense, regret is a rehearsal. The brain is not only punishing us but preparing us, hoping that next time the slow wisdom will arrive faster. Emotion complicates this further. During conflict, anger, fear, or embarrassment can hijack the mouth entirely. Words come out raw, jagged, unmeasured. Later, when the body's chemistry settles, clarity returns, and we cringe at what we said. It feels as though another person spoke on our behalf, one we would not choose as our representative. Regret, again, floods in. We wonder how much damage those words may have done to the relationship, whether they can be repaired, or whether silence might have been the wiser choice all along. The universal phenomenon. What is striking is how universal this pattern is. It is not a personal flaw but a shared human condition. Across cultures and languages, people confess to the same experience, the conversation replayed in the mind, the late arriving thought that shines like a jewel no one will ever see. The French gave it a name, l'esprit de l'escalier, the wit of the staircase, because the clever remark comes only as one is leaving the house, too late to utter. The existence of a phrase for it, preserved in language for centuries, is proof that this is not a private struggle but a common rhythm of human interaction. Regret is often misunderstood. We experience it as a wound, but it is, in fact, a teacher. When we replay conversations in our minds, imagining what we should have said, we are not only punishing ourselves. We are training. Each imagined response is a rehearsal for the future, a way of sharpening our verbal instincts so that, perhaps, next time the right words will arrive on time. Yet regret also carries danger. Left unchecked, it can become rumination, a cycle that traps us in the past and convinces us that we are perpetually inadequate. The line between rehearsal and self-criticism is thin, and many of us cross it too often. To dwell endlessly on what we might have said is to neglect the present moment, where new conversations and new chances also wait. Perhaps the goal is not to eliminate this delay between thought and speech, but to live more gently with it. To accept that conversation is not a performance of perfection but an unfolding, imperfect act of connection. To remember that others, too, lead discussions with their own private regrets, their own imagined sentences they never spoke. We are not alone in our afterthoughts. What we meant to say often carries more weight in our own hearts than in the memory of others. While we brood over our missteps, those we spoke with may already have moved on, hardly remembering the moment at all. In this sense, our regret is often larger than the offense itself. The world does not scrutinize us as harshly as we scrutinize ourselves. To begin forgiving ourselves for the words we missed or mangled is to acknowledge our humanity. The delay is part of being a creature who speaks. We are not machines delivering flawless responses, we are living beings, juggling memory, emotion, instinct, and language in real time. That some thoughts arrive late should not surprise us. It should, perhaps, comfort us, because it means we are still thinking, still refining, still growing. If a conversation lingers in your mind, if the better words arrive long after the moment has slipped away, you are participating in one of the oldest dramas of human life. It is the tension between the fast and the slow, the impulsive and the considered, the present and the past. To live in this tension is to be human. To write about it, to reflect on it, is to honor that shared imperfection. And so this book begins with an invitation to step into the river of conversation, not with the demand of perfection, but with the acceptance of delay. What we mean to say may not always arrive on time, but it arrives nonetheless. And sometimes, in the quiet after the words are gone, in the solitude where regret first stings, we discover not only what we missed but who we truly are. If Chapter 1 explored the sting of hindsight, this chapter must dwell in it, carefully turning over the stone to see what lies underneath. For hindsight is not just a place of regret, it is also a workshop, a training ground where the mind experiments with words it never spoke, building blueprints for future moments. To understand ourselves, we must linger here, in the mental theater where conversations replay endlessly. After a difficult interaction, most of us find ourselves pacing mentally through the dialogue, rehearsing alternate versions. The mind is both director and actor, it assigns roles, rewrites lines, adjusts tone. In this private rehearsal, we are cleverer, sharper, more composed than we were in reality. We interrupt our imagined opponent with wit, silence them with clarity, dazzle them with insight. Yet the curtain has already fallen in the real world. These plays are for us alone. Why do we do this? The answer lies in the brain's tendency to simulate, to run scenarios as a way of learning. Just as we dream at night to process the day's experiences, we dream awake when revisiting conversations. We stage these imagined dialogues in the hope that next time, in some similar situation, our responses will be stronger, faster, truer. What feels like punishment is also practice. Still, there is pain in these rehearsals. The imagined brilliance highlights the mediocrity of our real performance. This contrast feeds shame. Why didn't I think of that when it mattered? Why am I always late to my own thoughts? The answer is simple, because you were human in real time, with a nervous system pulsing, with emotions clouding clarity, with the urgency of another person's eyes waiting for your reply. What you lacked was not intelligence, but calm. The regret we feel afterward is not proof of failure. It is proof that our deeper wisdom was always there, waiting for quieter conditions to emerge. The better words existed within us, but they were muffled by the noise of the moment. To recognize this is to soften the shame, to see regret not as evidence of inadequacy but as a sign of the wisdom still unfolding. We often think of speech as the only currency of conversation, but silence holds its own power. Sometimes the best thing we could have said is nothing at all. Yet silence feels threatening, it risks being read as ignorance, weakness, or disengagement. This fear pushes us to fill the air with words before we are ready. What hindsight teaches us, again and again, is that silence is not absence. It can be a container, a pause in which the true thought has space to arrive. Imagine if we trained ourselves to value silence as much as speech. Conversations might slow, but their depth would increase. The sting of hindsight would lessen because we would have granted our slower thoughts the time they need to emerge in the moment itself. To reclaim silence is to reclaim patience with ourselves. Another reason we torture ourselves with hindsight is because conversation is not just about words, it is about identity. When we speak, we reveal ourselves, or at least we fear we do. If our words are clumsy, we worry that others will see us as clumsy. If our arguments are weak, we fear they will see us as weak. Speech feels like a mirror reflecting back who we are. This is why the regret of what I should have said can sting more than the regret of what I should have done. Actions matter, of course, but words feel closer to our essence. They are the bridge between our inner life and the world outside. To stumble in words feels like stumbling in selfhood. And yet, here too, the mirror deceives us. Others rarely remember our words with the same intensity that we do. They are caught up in their own inner rehearsals, their own fears and regrets. In truth, most of the time, our words vanish almost as soon as they are spoken, leaving only a vague impression behind. The burden of memory is heavier for the speaker than for the listener. But what if we treated these afterthoughts not as failures but as raw material? The witty comeback that came too late could become the seed of a story. The clearer argument discovered hours later could be written down, shared in a journal, refined into an essay or a letter. The words we never spoke in conversation can still exist in another form. In this way, regret becomes creation. Writers, poets, and artists have long understood this. Much art is born out of unsaid words, out of conversations that never happened the way we wished. To channel hindsight into expression is to give those words a second life, one not limited by the urgency of real time. Perhaps the book you are reading now exists for precisely that reason, because words that came too late in one moment have found their way to the page in another. Of course, we cannot escape real conversations. Life will keep presenting us with situations where words are demanded now, not later. How, then, can we carry the wisdom of hindsight into the present? One way is to recognize patterns. If, in hindsight, you always wish you had spoken with more calm, then next time you feel heat rising in your chest, you might remember, I regret rushing. This time, I will pause. If, in hindsight, you always wish you had been kinder, then next time irritation sharpens your tongue, you might recall, kindness is what I miss later. I will choose it now. By noticing the themes in our regrets, we transform them from sources of shame into guides for behavior. Regret is a compass, pointing us toward the qualities we most wish to embody. Conversations in hindsight will never disappear. They are part of being human. But they need not trap us. When we accept them as rehearsal, as creativity, as guidance, they become less like wounds and more like teachers. We can still laugh at our too late comebacks, still wince at our remembered mistakes, but we can also honor them for what they are, signs that we are reflective beings, always learning, always refining. The truth is that no one ever says everything perfectly in the moment. No one escapes the sting of the staircase wit. But the words we think too late are not lost. They live in us, shaping who we are and how we will speak tomorrow. And perhaps that is their true purpose, not to rescue yesterday, but to prepare us for today. If the first two chapters have dealt with the words that escape us in conversation, this one must turn inward, to the words we speak only to ourselves. For there is a dialogue that never ends, a conversation we carry inside, where regret and imagination meet. Here, in the privacy of our thoughts, the unspoken sentences multiply. We are not just late to our words, we are also their eternal audience. Most of us live accompanied by an inner narrator. It comments, criticizes, rehearses, and replays. When we leave a conversation, this voice rarely falls silent. Instead, it rushes in, taking the place of the person who has left. It reminds us of what we said, questions our choices, and invents better alternatives. Sometimes it is cruel, scolding us for our failures, sometimes it is kind, consoling us with gentler interpretations. But always it is present, always it has something to say. This inner dialogue is both a gift and a burden. It allows us to reflect, to learn from our mistakes, to plan for future encounters. Yet it can also trap us in endless loops of self-doubt. If we are not careful, the inner voice becomes a tyrant, punishing us for being imperfect in situations where perfection was never possible. Psychologists often describe the inner voice as having two aspects, the judge and the friend. The judge is stern, unforgiving, focused on our flaws. It emphasizes what we should have said, how foolish we sounded, how weak or clumsy we appeared. The friend, by contrast, reminds us that we are human, that everyone misses their chance at the perfect word, that kindness toward ourselves matters more than brilliance in debate. The problem is that the judge speaks louder than the friend. In moments of regret, we often hear the harshness more than the compassion. Our task, then, is not to silence the judge entirely but to invite the friend into the conversation, to give that softer voice a chance to be heard. Only then can hindsight transform from punishment into guidance. One way to shift the inner dialogue is through reframing. Instead of saying, "I failed to say the right thing," we might say, "I learned what matters to me in that exchange." Instead of, "I was too slow," we might say, "My deeper wisdom needed more time, and now I know it better." Reframing does not erase the sting of regret, but it changes its meaning. The same memory can either be a wound or a lesson, depending on the story we tell ourselves. Consider, for example, an argument with a colleague. Hours later, you think of the calm, measured response you wish you had given. The judge says, "You lost the argument, you looked weak." The friend says, "Now you know how you want to handle conflict in the future." Both are voices within you. Which one you choose to amplify determines whether regret corrodes or strengthens. The inner voice is not only a critic of the past, it is also a rehearsal for the future. Many of us talk to ourselves before important meetings, difficult conversations, or anticipated conflicts. We imagine the other person's words and script our replies. This is hindsight projected forward, using past regret as raw material for future readiness. This rehearsal has value. It allows us to anticipate emotional triggers, to plan for moments when clarity may desert us. Yet it must be balanced, for no conversation unfolds exactly as imagined. The danger is that we become attached to the script, and when reality deviates, we are thrown off balance. The art lies in preparing without clinging, rehearsing while leaving space for spontaneity. Not all inner dialogue is useful. Sometimes it becomes rumination, an obsessive replay that neither teaches nor consoles. Rumination is a trap. The same scene reappears again and again, each time with fresh self-criticism, but without progress. Instead of preparing us for the future, it chains us to the past. Breaking this cycle requires awareness. When the same conversation has replayed 10 times, it is unlikely that the 11th will bring new insight. At that point, the inner dialogue has ceased to be a teacher and has become a tormentor. The skill is to recognize this shift and to step away, perhaps through writing, meditation, or simply redirecting attention to the present moment. If there is one thread running through this book, it is that imperfection in speech is inevitable. To demand flawless words in real time is to demand the impossible. Our inner dialogue must learn this truth if we are to live with peace. The friend within us must grow strong enough to stand beside the judge, reminding us that we are more than the sum of our conversations. Inner compassion does not excuse us from growth, it simply makes growth sustainable. When we treat ourselves with the same gentleness we wish to offer others, our regret softens into reflection, and our hindsight becomes a guide rather than a weapon. In the end, the most important conversation is the one we hold with ourselves. Every word spoken aloud is followed by 1,000 silent ones inside. If those inner words are only cruel, life becomes heavy. If they are balanced with kindness, life becomes lighter. The dialogue never ends, but we can choose its tone. Thus, Chapter 3 leaves us with a question: what kind of voice do you cultivate within yourself? For in that voice lives the quality of your days, the texture of your regrets, and the shape of your future words. To speak well to others, we must first learn to speak well to ourselves. The previous chapters have explored regret, hindsight, and the inner dialogue. But there remains one more essential act: to step forward and speak again. For if regret teaches us anything, it is that words, once missed, are not the end of the story. Every new day offers another chance, another conversation, another possibility to say what we mean more clearly, more kindly, more bravely. One of the hidden costs of regret is avoidance. After a painful exchange, many of us withdraw. We replay the moment so many times that the idea of speaking again feels dangerous, as though our words will betray us once more. This fear can shrink our lives, limiting our relationships and silencing our voices. We convince ourselves that silence is safer. And yet silence, if chosen out of fear, is no safety at all. It becomes a barrier, cutting us off not only from others but from ourselves. The very regret we try to escape grows stronger in the silence, because it is fed by absence. To heal, we must dare to re-enter conversation, to risk imperfection again. There is profound courage in returning to a conversation, even after it has gone poorly. Sometimes this means reaching out to the very person with whom we stumbled, offering words we missed before. A simple sentence, "I've been thinking about what I said earlier, and I want to add something," can transform regret into growth. It shows not weakness but strength, the ability to reflect, to admit imperfection, to continue the dialogue rather than bury it. At other times, the return does not involve the same person but a new encounter. Each fresh conversation is a chance to practice what hindsight has taught us. The gentleness we wished we had shown, the clarity we discovered too late, the silence we learned to value, these can be woven into our next words, spoken to someone else, in another moment. To speak again requires forgiveness, forgiveness of ourselves for not being perfect, forgiveness of others for their imperfections too. Without forgiveness, every conversation becomes weighed down by the past, and regret turns to resentment. Forgiveness, however, releases both parties into the possibility of something new. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing. It means acknowledging what happened and choosing not to let it define the future. When we forgive ourselves for the words we failed to say, we make space for new words to arrive. When we forgive others for the ways they hurt us in speech, we open the door for deeper connection. It is tempting to imagine that one day we will master conversation, that the right words will always arrive on time, that hindsight will no longer haunt us. But such perfection is an illusion. What truly matters is not mastery but growth, the slow widening of our capacity to listen, to pause, to respond with care. Each regret teaches us something. Each replayed conversation offers insight. Each inner dialogue reveals our values. Growth happens not in the absence of mistakes but in their presence, when we allow them to guide us rather than shame us. Courage is not the elimination of regret but the willingness to keep speaking in its shadow. Over time, as we continue to risk conversation, we build resilience. The sting of hindsight becomes less sharp because we trust ourselves to keep trying. We know that even if today's words were imperfect, tomorrow offers another chance. The more we speak, the more we discover that relationships are not fragile glass but living bonds, able to withstand awkwardness, misunderstanding, and repair. Resilience is the antidote to the paralysis of regret. It says, yes, I may falter, but I will return. Yes, I may miss the perfect phrase, but I will keep speaking. Resilience allows us to live forward, to see conversation as an ongoing process rather than a test we either pass or fail. To find the courage to speak again is to embrace the unfinished nature of human connection. No conversation is ever final, it echoes into the future, shaping the next exchange and the one after that. What we meant to say is never lost, it waits for us in the next moment, the next encounter, the next chance to open our mouths and try again. Chapter 4 closes not with regret but with invitation to step back into dialogue, to risk the stumble, to welcome the silence, to trust that the words will come, not always perfectly, not always on time, but honestly, and with the courage of someone who has learned from the past. For in the end, the truest response to regret is not silence, but speech renewed. Having journeyed through regret, hindsight, inner dialogue, and the courage to speak again, we now turn toward the larger purpose of all these struggles, connection. Words, whether perfect or flawed, are bridges between us. Beneath the awkward pauses, the too late comebacks, and the moments of silence, there lies a deeper truth, that we reach for one another through language, and it is this reaching that gives conversation its true meaning. When we reflect on conversations that matter most, we rarely remember the exact sentences. Instead, we recall the feeling of being heard, the warmth of laughter, the comfort of presence. The details blur, but the emotional imprint remains. This is a reminder that while regret often magnifies the precision of missed words, connection depends less on perfection and more on presence. In this way, our obsession with the right words can distract us from the real goal. The perfect phrase may escape us, but if our tone carried care, if our eyes held honesty, if our silence allowed space for the other person's truth, then the connection has already been made. Language is not only verbal, it is embodied, emotional, relational. Everyone carries their own staircase wit, their own unsaid words, their own late-arriving brilliance. When we recognize this, a strange comfort arises. We are not alone in our regret, we are participants in a universal drama. To admit this openly, to say, "I thought of something better later," is not a confession of weakness but an acknowledgement of our shared humanity. In fact, such honesty can deepen connection. Vulnerability invites trust. When we stop pretending to be flawless speakers and instead reveal the truth of our imperfection, we give others permission to do the same. Conversation becomes less about performance and more about authenticity. If speaking is often rushed and flawed, listening is its balancing act. To listen deeply is to give another person the gift of patience, the very patience we often deny ourselves. A generous listener does not demand perfect words but searches for meaning beneath them, allowing room for stumbles and pauses. Listening, then, becomes a form of compassion. It acknowledges that words are imperfect containers for thought, that no one says exactly what they mean in the heat of the moment. To listen well is to hear not only the words but the intention, the struggle, the humanity behind them. Every conversation builds or repairs a bridge. Some are fragile, requiring careful steps, others are sturdy, carrying the weight of history. What matters is not that each stone of the bridge is placed perfectly, but that the bridge exists at all, that we continue the effort of building, word by word, even when some stones slip out of place. This perspective reframes regret. A missed word is not the collapse of the bridge, it is a single loose stone in a structure that is always being repaired, reinforced, renewed. So long as we keep showing up, keep speaking, keep listening, the bridge holds. Life is generous with second chances. The conversation we regret today is rarely the last. Relationships give us opportunities to try again, to clarify, to apologize, to expand. Even when words are lost in one moment, they can be spoken in another. Sometimes the most meaningful sentences begin with, "I've been thinking about what I said yesterday," or "There's something I didn't express before." These phrases are not signs of failure but of commitment, to connection, to truth, to growth. Second chances remind us that conversations are not fixed events but ongoing journeys. They stretch across time, carrying our voices forward, allowing us to add, revise, and heal. In this way, what we meant to say still has a chance to be said. At the heart of it all, regret teaches us what we value most: connection. We regret not because we failed to be clever, but because we fear we missed a chance to truly connect. The cure, then, is not to perfect our words but to remain open, to show up again, to listen more generously, to forgive more quickly, to trust that our presence matters more than our precision. The language of connection is not flawless speech but honest engagement. It is built from imperfect words spoken with sincerity, from silences that honor thought, from laughter that bridges gaps, from apologies that mend. When we choose connection over perfection, regret softens into wisdom, and hindsight becomes less a burden than a reminder of our shared humanity. If regret has been our teacher and connection our goal, then we must pause to consider the hidden wisdom of delay itself. For while we often curse the late arriving thought, there is a deeper lesson in its timing. Perhaps the truth is not that our words come too late, but that our understanding ripens slowly, like fruit that cannot be rushed. In the heat of a conversation, we long for immediacy. We wish our minds could produce the perfect response on demand. Yet many truths require time to surface. A pause of hours, days, or even years may be what allows meaning to mature. The fact that clarity often comes later does not mean it is flawed, it means it has depth. Consider the way we understand important life events. rarely do we grasp their full meaning in the moment. Only in reflection, sometimes much later, do we see what they were teaching us. Conversations are no different. Their significance unfolds slowly, and the words we wish we had said often reveal values we had not yet fully recognized. When we replay conversations in hindsight, we are not merely fixing mistakes, we are uncovering hidden truths about ourselves. The remark we wish we had made is not just a clever phrase, it is a window into our priorities, our boundaries, our unspoken beliefs. Delay, then, is not failure but revelation. It shows us what matters most to us, even if we did not know it in the moment. Delay also has its place in relationships. Not every truth must be spoken immediately. Sometimes waiting allows us to speak with more care, to approach with gentleness rather than raw emotion. What hindsight teaches us today may be better shared tomorrow, after reflection has softened its edges. The courage to wait can be as valuable as the courage to speak. In this way, the delay between thought and speech can protect relationships. Instead of blurting anger, we arrive later with understanding. Instead of forcing resolution, we allow silence to do its quiet work, preparing the soil for better words to grow. We often imagine that there exists a perfect moment to say the perfect thing. But this is an illusion. Timing is always imperfect, because life is in motion. What matters is not precision but sincerity. Even late words can heal, clarify, and connect. Indeed, sometimes words spoken later carry greater weight, because they arrive with the authority of reflection. A heartfelt apology offered a week after the hurt may mean more than one offered in haste. A thoughtful reply sent the next day may carry more truth than the quick reaction of the moment. Timing, then, is not about speed but about alignment, with our values, with our clarity, with our capacity for care. If delay holds wisdom, then patience becomes an essential practice. Patience with ourselves, as we stumble and then learn. Patience with others, as they too search for words they do not yet have. Patience with the process of communication, which is not a single exchange but an ongoing unfolding. To cultivate patience is to release the demand for perfection in real time. It is to trust that what needs to be said will find its way, even if it takes longer than we wished. Patience transforms regret into acceptance, hindsight into guidance, delay into depth. The wisdom of delay lies in its reminder that speech is not only about speed but about truth. What we meant to say is sometimes revealed only after the moment, but this does not make it worthless. On the contrary, it makes it precious, because it shows that our understanding is alive, growing, ripening over time. So let us honor the delay. Let us treat the late arriving thought not as a failure but as a companion on our journey. For in its timing lies a gentle lesson, that life itself unfolds slowly, that wisdom cannot be rushed, and that what we meant to say may arrive not in the moment, but in the fullness of time. As we journey further, a final truth begins to emerge: every conversation is, in some sense, unfinished. No matter how carefully we speak, no matter how deeply we listen, there is always more left unsaid, more waiting to be discovered, more connections yet to be built. Far from being a flaw, this unfinished quality is what makes dialogue alive. It stretches beyond the moment, reaching into memory, imagination, and possibility. We often imagine conversations as events that begin and end in tidy packages. Yet the truth is that they rarely resolve so neatly. Words linger. They echo in our minds. They reappear when we least expect them, reshaping our understanding of the past. A remark made years ago can still spark reflection today. An apology given late can still heal old wounds. In this way, conversations are not closed circles but open spirals, continuing to influence us long after they seem complete. If regret is born from hindsight, it also means that conversations continue to live within us. When we replay what we said, or failed to say, we are keeping the dialogue alive, however painful. Even silence becomes part of the conversation, a wordless response that lingers in the spaces between people. The echo may carry sorrow, but it can also carry hope, the possibility that the unfinished can still be continued. The unfinished nature of conversation is not only interpersonal, it is also internal. Each time we reflect on what we might have said, we are speaking again, this time within ourselves. These inner conversations refine our values, clarify our beliefs, and prepare us for the next moment of speech. In this sense, hindsight is not only regret but rehearsal for the future. To honor the unfinished is to see that even when we miss the perfect words in the moment, we are still engaged in dialogue. The conversation is not over, it has simply shifted inward, waiting for us to carry it outward once more. Relationships thrive not because every word is perfect, but because there is room for continuation. We return to one another again and again, adding layers to the dialogue. Yesterday's misunderstanding can become tomorrow's reconciliation. Today's silence can become tomorrow's confession. The thread of conversation stretches across time, strengthened not by finality but by persistence. This is why regret need not trap us. To think I should have said more is not the end of the story, it is an invitation to speak again. The unfinished conversation reminds us that connection is a living process, not a single chance that vanishes forever. There is beauty in leaving something unsaid. Just as a painting gains power from the negative space around its figures, a conversation gains meaning from what it does not contain. Mystery, imagination, and longing all have their place in human connection. The words we never found may invite curiosity in others, may open space for them to speak, may keep the relationship alive with possibility. Incompletion humbles us. It teaches us that we do not own the conversation, that dialogue is co-created, that others bring their own words and silences. To accept incompletion is to welcome the richness of the unknown. Chapter 7 does not close the book but keeps it open, just as conversations themselves remain unfinished. The thoughts we could not articulate, the words we regret, the pauses we carry within us, they are not failures but reminders that connection is always in motion. What we meant to say lives on, not as a lost opportunity, but as a continuing invitation. To live with unfinished conversations is to embrace life itself, messy, incomplete, and yet filled with meaning. The echo remains, the silence speaks, and the future waits for our next words. As this journey nears its close, we return to the silence that has shadowed every chapter, the words unsaid, the pauses we replay, the lines that arrive too late. But now, after exploring regret, hindsight, connection, delay, and the unfinished nature of dialogue, we can see that the unspoken is not only a source of pain. It is also a source of possibility, even wisdom. Silence is often cast as failure, the absence of speech, the missed opportunity. Yet silence is also a kind of language, one that speaks in subtler tones. A pause can invite reflection. An unspoken word can carry tenderness too fragile for sound. Sometimes, what we leave unsaid matters as much as what we do say. When we learn to value the quiet between words, we stop treating every silence as a mistake. Instead, we begin to notice its richness, the way it creates space for others, the way it honors complexity, the way it allows meaning to ripen. In this sense, the unspoken is not emptiness but presence. Ironically, the sentences we never speak still shape who we are. They live within us as reminders of our values, our boundaries, our truths. They influence how we act tomorrow, what we choose to emphasize, and what we choose to withhold. The unsaid does not disappear, it transforms into guidance, nudging us toward a more authentic self. To accept this is to realize that not every thought needs to be voiced. Some of what we mean to say is meant only for us, shaping us from within. The unspoken, then, is not a flaw but a companion, a quiet teacher reminding us of what we hold dear. By now, it is clear, no conversation will ever contain everything we wish it did. No book, even this one, can capture the fullness of human longing to express, connect, and understand. But imperfection is not the enemy, it is the fabric of life. It keeps us humble, curious, open to tomorrow's chance. What we meant to say may not always find the right words, but it continues to live in our gestures, in our listening, in our willingness to try again. And often, others remember less the exact words we spoke than the sincerity behind them. Presence outlasts precision. This book began with the sting of hindsight, the ache of realizing what we should have said but didn't. It has traveled through inner dialogue, the courage to speak again, the language of connection, the wisdom of delay, the unfinished nature of words, and now, the acceptance of the unspoken. Each chapter has revealed that regret is not the end of the story but a doorway into growth. What remains is not a cure, nor a promise of perfect speech, but an invitation to live with our words and silences alike, to honor both what is spoken and what is left unsaid, to continue building bridges not only with language but with presence, forgiveness, and care. The final irony is that even this chapter is unfinished. Even now, there are more things that could be said, more insights waiting for another time. But that is the nature of conversation and of life. The book may close, but the dialogue continues, in your reflections, in your relationships, in the words you will speak tomorrow. So let us carry forward not the burden of regret but the gift of awareness. Let us remember that every silence holds possibility, every delayed thought holds wisdom, and every conversation, spoken or unspoken, is part of a larger story of connection. What we meant to say is never lost. It waits, patient and enduring, in the space between us, ready to be spoken when the time is right. As we move deeper into the journey of words spoken and unspoken, regret and redemption, silence and connection, there comes a realization that our conversations never truly end. They ripple outward in ways we rarely see, shaping lives long after the sound has faded. If earlier chapters have shown us the sting of hindsight, the courage to try again, and the wisdom of delay, then this chapter seeks to stretch the lens wider, to consider the long echo of words across time, relationships, and even generations. This chapter will be longer because the echo itself is long. It is not a single reflection but a tapestry of overlapping stories, lessons, and possibilities. To understand the weight of what we meant to say, we must also understand the endurance of what we did say, and the silence of what we never voiced. When we speak, we often think of our words as temporary. A conversation ends, and we assume it disappears into memory. But words rarely vanish. They lodge themselves in the hearts of others, sometimes more deeply than we intended. A single careless remark can shape someone's self-perception for years. A single sentence of kindness can be carried like a torch through dark seasons. This truth is both sobering and empowering. It reminds us to treat speech not as disposable but as enduring. The regret we feel for the words we failed to say is matched by another kind of regret, the awareness of words we spoke without care. The echo forces us to acknowledge responsibility, not only for precision but for presence, not only for eloquence but for impact. The echo does not stop with the individual. Families, cultures, and entire communities carry the weight of words passed down through time. Stories, sayings, lessons, spoken again and again, become part of identity itself. Some are gifts of wisdom, proverbs that guide us, blessings that sustain us. Others are burdens, inherited criticisms, wounds carried silently from one generation to the next. When we reflect on the words we regret not saying, we must also reflect on the words we choose to say now. Every honest apology, every affirmation, every expression of love has the power to interrupt cycles of silence or harm. In this way, our late-arriving thoughts are not only for us, they are also for those who come after us. We speak not only into our present but into the fabric of the future. But the echo belongs not only to speech, it belongs also to silence. What we do not say may reverberate even more loudly than what we do. Silence can be compassionate, giving space for others. But silence can also wound. A withheld apology, an unspoken "I love you," a refusal to acknowledge pain, these create echoes of absence that may endure for lifetimes. And yet, even silence has its chance for redemption. To finally speak, even after long delay, is to send a new echo forward. It may not erase the absence, but it can transform its meaning. The long echo teaches us that it is never truly too late. Words spoken after years of silence may matter precisely because they come so late, bearing the weight of time. If we look beyond our own lives, we see that entire societies live with the echoes of words spoken or withheld in the past. Political speeches, declarations, silences in the face of injustice, these shape collective memory. Regret here becomes not only personal but cultural. What a people meant to say can define their moral horizon. And just as individuals can return to unfinished conversations, so too can communities. apologies given by nations decades later, reparations attempted long after harm, acknowledgements made after years of silence, all these are echoes of what should have been said earlier. They do not erase the past, but they reshape the present. They remind us that even in history, the conversation is never truly over. The long echo invites us to re-enter conversations across time. To tell someone today what we should have said years ago. To apologize for a hurt that lingers. To express gratitude long overdue. In doing so, we discover that words are not bound to their original moment. They carry power whenever they are spoken. And often, the very delay deepens their meaning because it shows persistence, memory, and care. The courage to return is what transforms regret into redemption. Without it, we remain trapped in silence. With it, we extend the arc of dialogue, proving that words may be delayed but never lost. The long echo is not only external, it reverberates within us. The sentences we replay at night, the comebacks we imagine, the apologies we rehearse, all these shape our sense of self. The inner dialogue becomes its own echo chamber, sometimes harsh, sometimes tender. To live with this echo is part of being human. But to listen closely is to realize that even our inner words have power. They form the script we live by. Here, too, lies a choice. Will we allow the inner echo to be one of constant criticism, replaying only failure? Or will we allow it to carry words of encouragement, forgiveness, and hope? The echo we nurture within becomes the echo we extend outward. By softening the voice inside, we prepare ourselves to soften the voices we send to others. To live with the long echo of words is to accept that conversation never ends. What we meant to say, what we failed to say, what we should not have said, all of it remains, shaping us and those around us. But this is not a burden to fear. It is a reminder of responsibility, of possibility, of continuity. The echo teaches us that while we cannot control the past, we can influence the future. Our next words, spoken with care, can redirect the resonance. A single moment of honesty can soften years of silence. A single act of courage can change the tone of what lingers. The long echo is not fixed, it is always being rewritten. As we arrive at the 10th chapter, the path behind us is crowded with echoes, regrets carried like shadows, silences that whispered more loudly than words, sentences that arrived too late but taught us patience, voices passed through families and across generations, and the long echo that refuses to die. What remains now is not a conclusion but an opening, a widening of the horizon. For if there is one truth that threads through every chapter, it is this: conversation does not end. It expands, it changes form, it waits, and it carries us forward. This final chapter is intentionally longer because endings deserve space. They are not doors slammed shut, but thresholds into something larger. Just as no conversation is ever complete, no reflection on conversation can be. What follows is not closure, but a continuation, an exploration of what it means to live as though every word, silence, and echo matters. We long for finality. We want the last word, the perfect goodbye, the sentence that ties every thread into neat closure. Yet life rarely grants such symmetry. The last thing we said to someone may have been hurried, imperfect, or forgettable. Sometimes we only realize its weight after the person is gone, after the relationship has shifted, after the moment has passed beyond recall. But perhaps the myth of final words is precisely that, a myth. Conversations do not end at death or distance. They continue within us, in memory, in imagination, in the new words we speak to others because of what we learned. The farewell we never gave, the confession we withheld, the kindness left unsaid, all of these continue to live in us. We carry them forward, reshaping them into future encounters. What we meant to say may never have reached its original audience, but it still finds expression. It lives on in our changed behavior, our softened tone, our sharpened truth. In this way, there are no final words, only evolving ones. Every outward dialogue is mirrored by an inward one. We rehearse, we replay, we rewrite. We scold ourselves for silence, or we imagine what courage might have sounded like. This conversation with the self is relentless, sometimes cruel, sometimes compassionate. It, too, never ends. To live well with this inner dialogue is to learn discernment. Not every inner echo deserves our obedience. Some are the voices of old wounds, still whispering their criticisms. Others are sparks of truth, urging us toward growth. Part of maturity is learning to sort these voices, to silence the ones that bind us in shame, and to amplify the ones that lead us toward honesty and connection. The unending conversation with the self is not a flaw, it is the soil from which future words will grow. If we cultivate it with patience, self-forgiveness, and curiosity, then the words we eventually speak to others will carry that same quality. The kindness we give ourselves becomes the kindness we extend outward. There is also the conversation we keep with memory. We talk to those who are no longer with us, in whispered prayers, in imagined replies, in the quiet rituals of remembrance. These conversations are unfinished, but they are no less real. In fact, they reveal the depth of our humanity, the refusal to let connection be severed by absence. We may regret what we did not say, but memory offers us a way to keep speaking. To write a letter to someone who has passed, to speak aloud in an empty room, to carry forward their words through our own mouths, these are acts of continuation. They remind us that conversation is not limited to two bodies in a room. It is a living thread that can cross the boundaries of time and mortality. The conversation with the past can wound us, yes, but it can also heal. To finally articulate what we carried unsaid is to release some of its weight. To imagine what our loved one might have replied is to keep their presence alive. Memory itself is a dialogue, one that never concludes. If words echo backward, they also echo forward. The stories we tell, the values we voice, the silences we break or maintain, all of these shape a future we may never see. Parents speak into their children's lives, teachers into their students, leaders into their communities, and each word ripples outward, continuing long after the speaker is gone. To recognize this is to take responsibility. We may never know the full impact of what we say today. A child may remember a single phrase decades later, a friend may cling to our encouragement when we have long forgotten it. What we mean to say matters not only now but in the unfolding years. Speech is not just communication, it is legacy. The conversation with the future is a call to intention. It reminds us that our voices are not momentary, they are threads in a much larger tapestry. Even silence is part of this legacy. The things we never say can either haunt those who come after us or inspire them to break cycles of unspoken truth. As we have seen throughout this book, words are never the whole story. Tone, gesture, presence, all of these speak as powerfully as sentences. Sometimes they speak more. To sit silently beside someone in grief may say more than any consoling phrase. To smile at a stranger may echo longer than a dozen polite remarks. This reminds us that conversation is not confined to language. It is woven into being itself. Our lives are conversations, ongoing exchanges between what we intend and what we embody, between what we give and what others receive. In this sense, we are always speaking, whether we open our mouths or not. To live consciously, then, is to recognize that our actions are words, our silences are words, our presence is language. What we mean to say may sometimes fail in speech, but it can still arrive in gesture, in care, in the quiet persistence of showing up. The conversation that never ends is sacred because it reflects the unending search for connection at the heart of being human. We stumble, we fall silent, we regret, but we also return, we try again, we risk imperfection for the sake of communion. This ongoingness is not failure, it is faith. Faith that the next word, however flawed, may still carry healing. Faith that silence, too, can hold meaning. Faith that no echo is final, that dialogue is always possible. To see conversation this way is to be liberated from the burden of perfection. We no longer demand that every word be flawless. We trust instead in the process, in the slow weaving of connection across time, through regret and return, silence and speech, presence and absence. What matters is not mastery but persistence, not eloquence but sincerity. And so we arrive at the threshold of ending, only to realize there is none. The chapters have numbered themselves neatly, but the subject refuses to close. For even here, as the final paragraphs appear on the page, you are already in dialogue with them, agreeing, resisting, reflecting, adding your own unspoken sentences. The book is not the end of the conversation, but another beginning. To live is to converse endlessly, with ourselves, with others, with the past, with the future. Some words will be missed, others will arrive late, some will echo longer than we imagined, and many will remain forever unspoken. Yet all of them together form the music of human connection. Imperfect, incomplete, but alive. So let us not chase the fantasy of perfect final words. Let us instead embrace the endlessness of dialogue, the humility of incompletion, the beauty of return. What we meant to say will always outnumber what we said. But that is not a tragedy, it is a promise. A promise that the conversation is not over, that the echo continues, that tomorrow offers another chance. The conversation never ends. And neither, truly, do we. At this stage, the journey has carried us far beyond simple words. We began with regret over what was left unsaid, moved through the wisdom of hindsight, touched the echo of silence, and reflected on the long conversation that stretches through time. Now, in this chapter, we ask a final question: what if we are not merely participants in conversation? What if we are the conversation itself? This is not simply poetry. It is an acknowledgement that human beings are dialogues in motion. Each of us is formed by voices past and present, by silences and confessions, by inherited words and chosen ones. And each of us, in turn, becomes a voice in the lives of others, shaping echoes we will never fully hear. To live is to converse. To be is to communicate, even in silence, even in absence. Because of this, Chapter 11 is long, deliberate, and expansive. It is the attempt not to conclude but to stretch wider, to see conversation not as something we do, but as something we are. We often think of conversation as confined to sentences, to vocal exchange. Yet everything about us speaks. Our bodies speak, in posture and expression. Our choices speak, in what we prioritize and what we neglect. Our very presence, or absence, communicates something to the world around us. This realization transforms regret. For if we are language, then silence is not the end of speech. Even when words fail us, even when we cannot summon the perfect sentence, we are still speaking through our being. The kindness of showing up, the humility of listening, the patience of waiting, all of these are sentences written in the grammar of presence. To live consciously is to accept this role as living language. Every gesture, every silence, every choice is part of the great dialogue of existence. None of us speaks alone. We are shaped by the voices of others, parents, friends, teachers, enemies, ancestors, strangers. Their words live inside us, guiding or haunting, comforting or restraining. Our identities are, in many ways, conversations in progress. This is why what we meant to say matters so much. Because when we withhold words of love, affirmation, or apology, we not only leave someone else's identity unfinished, we also leave our own incomplete. We become the silence they carry. But when we speak courageously, we enter their identity with care, adding words that may echo for decades. To see identity as dialogue is to realize that we are responsible for one another's voices. The conversation we carry inside ourselves is inseparable from the conversation we create in others. If we are conversations, then listening becomes sacred. It is through listening that we allow others' voices to shape us, to challenge us, to soften or expand us. Without listening, dialogue collapses into monologue, and regret multiplies. Listening itself is a form of language. It says, "You matter. I see you. I am willing to be changed by what you offer." In a world crowded with noise, true listening is revolutionary. It is one of the most powerful ways we can transform regret, because often what we regret not saying stems from what we failed to hear. To listen well is to plant the seeds of words that will one day be spoken with clarity and compassion. In earlier chapters, we spoke of regret as the recognition that words arrived too late. But perhaps time itself is a dialogue between what has been, what is, and what is yet to come. Our words and silences are threads in this temporal weave. When we revisit old conversations, when we finally say what we left unsaid, we are not merely correcting the past, we are conversing with time itself. We are acknowledging that meaning is not fixed to the instant. It is fluid, alive, capable of being rewritten. This means we need not fear missed opportunities. Time, like conversation, bends. It waits for us to return. And when we do, the echo grows richer, not weaker. If we are conversations, then we are also echoes. Long after we leave a room, our words linger. Long after we leave this world, our presence is remembered in fragments of speech, in remembered silences, in gestures replayed by those who loved or struggled with us. We live on as voices in the dialogue of others. To live with this awareness is both a burden and a gift. It reminds us to speak carefully, yes, but also to forgive ourselves when we stumble. For no single sentence defines us. It is the whole of our echo, the repeated pattern of words and silences, that tells the truth. And even there, redemption is possible. A lifetime of silence can be interrupted by one brave word. A lifetime of careless words can be softened by one honest apology. Echoes shift. Conversations continue. Theologians, poets, and philosophers across centuries have described life itself as dialogue with the infinite, whether with God, the universe, or the mystery beyond comprehension. In this view, every sentence we speak is not only to one another but to something larger, something eternal. Our regrets, our silences, our late arriving words, all are part of this vast dialogue. To see life this way is to realize that nothing is wasted. No word is too small, no silence too empty. Everything contributes to the conversation of existence. Even what we fail to say has meaning, for it teaches us, humbles us, reminds us of our need to return again and again to the act of speaking, listening, and connecting. The deepest transformation of regret comes when we stop thinking of conversation as something external, something that happens only in moments of dialogue. Instead, we begin to live as though we are conversations in motion. Our lives become language, our actions become sentences, our relationships become paragraphs in an ongoing story that will never fully close. In this view, what we meant to say is not a failure but a reminder of possibility. The unsaid becomes part of us, shaping our future words. The said becomes part of others, shaping their echoes. And together, all of it forms the great, unfinished conversation of humanity. The truth emerges clearly: we are not chasing perfect words. We are not searching for final sentences. We are learning to live as dialogue itself. We are learning to embrace imperfection as part of the music, to accept silence as part of the rhythm, to honor echoes as part of the melody. To be human is to be unfinished. To be unfinished is to remain in conversation. And to remain in conversation is to remain alive, vulnerable, courageous, regretful, hopeful, endlessly trying again. What we meant to say will always outnumber what we said. But that is not a wound. It is an invitation. It is proof that the conversation is still open, still waiting, still expanding. And in becoming the conversation itself, we find that nothing is ever truly lost. Before words ever reach the surface of the tongue, they live quietly in the heart. Emotions, joy, anger, sorrow, tenderness, arrange themselves long before language takes shape. A newborn does not need vocabulary to be understood. The cry of hunger, the laugh of delight, the wail of grief all speak in a grammar older than speech. In this sense, the heart is the first author, and language only its translation. Much of our regret arises not from failing to find clever words, but from failing to allow the heart to speak at all. Pride interrupts love before it reaches the lips. Fear strangles truth before it can be born. Distraction postpones gratitude until the moment has passed. Later, alone, the words return, not newly invented but rediscovered, reminders of what the heart had already whispered all along. There is a universal quality to this hidden grammar. Across cultures, across centuries, across every line that divides people, the sigh of relief, the tremor of grief, the sudden laugh, the long silence of sorrow, these are understood without translation. The heart speaks in a tongue that needs no dictionary. What varies is only how willing we are to honor it. Still, the absence of words can be costly. Love unspoken may be mistaken for indifference. Forgiveness withheld may be received as rejection. Gratitude left unsaid can leave a gift feeling unnoticed. Silence has its beauty, but without speech it can also become a wall. When the heart aches to be known, words become the necessary bridge between feeling and shared life. To live by the grammar of the heart requires practice in listening. It is a listening not to others first, but to oneself. What is the feeling beneath the hesitation? What is the truth behind the silence? Many times, we do not fail because we lack language, but because we resist the vulnerability of speaking what is already clear within. Each time we choose to speak sincerely, we give the heart a voice. It need not be eloquent, even the simplest words can carry great weight if they are aligned with what is true. A clumsy "I care about you" is more powerful than a polished silence. The grammar of the heart values honesty over elegance, courage over style. When we fail, the heart does not give up. Love withheld lingers as longing. Gratitude unsaid returns as guilt. Apologies delayed echo as restlessness. These are not punishments, but invitations. They remind us that the heart's language is persistent. It continues knocking, even when we ignore it, urging us to speak again. Regret becomes a kind of teacher in this way. Instead of condemning us, it points out where we abandoned the grammar of the heart. It shows us the place where words should have been given breath. And if we are attentive, it guides us toward better choices in the future, urging us to trust feeling enough to translate it into sound. To speak from the heart is to risk imperfection. Words may come out awkward, incomplete, or misunderstood. Yet even clumsy honesty is more life-giving than graceful pretense. People may forget polished speeches, but they rarely forget when someone dared to be genuine, even haltingly. The grammar of the heart teaches that sincerity is always understood. In the end, our task is not to master eloquence but to honor what is real within us. Silence will always hold its place, but words born of the heart give that silence flesh. Each attempt to speak, however small, is part of an unfinished lifelong translation of feeling into sound. And though we may stumble, every sincere word moves us closer to the connection we have always longed for. Every conversation is a kind of bridge. Some are delicate footpaths, carrying only the weight of small talk and passing acquaintance. Others are grand spans, built over years of trust, strong enough to hold the heaviest truths. And some are left unfinished, reaching partway toward the other side before stopping short, abandoned in silence. Our lives are full of these bridges, each one telling a story of how we tried, or failed, to reach another soul. The words we speak become the materials of construction. Kindness lays solid beams. Encouragement strengthens foundations. Apologies repair cracks. But careless remarks can rot the structure, and long silences can leave entire sections missing. When we regret what we didn't say, it is often because we see the bridge we left incomplete, the distance that remains uncrossed. And yet silence itself can also be a bridge. Between close friends, silence can signal comfort, the trust that no constant talking is required. Between parent and child, a shared quiet moment can mean more than words. Even across vast cultural divides, silence can sometimes communicate respect where speech might confuse. The bridge of silence is real, but it is delicate, it holds only if both sides understand its meaning. The risk of silence is misunderstanding. An unsaid "I love you" may be mistaken for indifference. A withheld apology may feel like pride. A pause meant for reflection may be received as dismissal. Bridges built from silence can easily collapse if their intention is not clear. What feels like connection from one side may feel like distance from the other. Regret reminds us where bridges are missing. The words we wish we had spoken show us the gaps we left behind. But the good news is that bridges can be built even late. A delayed "I'm sorry" still has power. A belated "I love you" still matters. Though the distance may have grown, though storms may have weathered the shores, the act of building is always possible. History itself is full of bridges built after silence. Families separated for years have reunited through a few halting words. Friendships thought broken have been mended by a single act of humility. Even nations have begun reconciliation through conversations once thought impossible. If bridges can be built across centuries of silence, then surely they can be built across the smaller gaps of our daily lives. But building requires courage. To reach out is to risk rejection. To lay words across the gap is to admit vulnerability. I want to be closer. I do not want this distance. That risk is frightening, which is why so many of us leave our bridges half constructed. Yet the alternative, remaining stranded on separate shores, is lonelier still. In truth, every human life is a network of bridges, some long, some short, some broken, some repaired. We are not only travelers across them but builders of them. Every conversation, every silence, every attempt at honesty adds another plank or beam. And every regret is simply a reminder of a bridge left waiting for our return. The great gift is that bridges can always be rebuilt. Even when trust has been damaged, even when silence has stretched for years, the act of speaking can begin again. It may not erase the past, but it offers a way forward. And forward is all we truly have. To see speech and silence as bridges is to recognize the sacred weight of every word, every pause. Together they form the passageways by which we reach each other, and by which love, trust, and belonging travel. Each time we dare to speak sincerely, or honor silence wisely, we add strength to the architecture of human connection. And each time we return to finish what we left undone, we prove that no bridge is ever truly beyond repair. Words are not only symbols for what already exists, they are also seeds of creation. To name something is to give it shape. A child does not truly enter the world of identity until someone calls their name. A promise does not exist until it is spoken. A vision of justice, of freedom, of hope does not move hearts until it is given voice. Words do not merely reflect reality, they make new realities possible. This is why silence carries such power as well. What we refuse to name remains in shadow. A love unspoken can go unnoticed, starving for acknowledgement. A wound unrecognized can deepen until it feels beyond repair. A dream kept hidden in silence can wither before it ever begins. In this way, silence too creates worlds, not by building them, but by leaving them undone. When we regret what we did not say, we are grieving not only the lost words but the lost worlds they might have created. The unspoken apology might have built reconciliation. The withheld gratitude might have built intimacy. The truth left unsaid might have built trust. Regret is the ache of seeing the blueprint of a world we never dared to build. And yet, regret also points forward. Every word we once withheld is still a possibility waiting to be spoken. The bridge we did not build yesterday can still be built today. Language is not locked in time, it is a renewable gift. What we did not create in the past, we may still create in the present. The invitation is always open. Words are powerful because they carry weight beyond our intentions. A sentence spoken in haste may echo for years in another's memory. A kindness spoken casually may become someone's anchor in despair. Once released, words live on beyond us, shaping realities we cannot predict. To speak is to surrender control, to trust that what we create may serve purposes we cannot fully see. This risk is precisely what makes language so frightening. Silence feels safer. If we say nothing, we cannot be misunderstood, cannot cause harm, cannot lose face. But silence, too, has consequences. By withholding our words, we also withhold the worlds they might have shaped. We avoid danger, but we also avoid creation. Safety and regret often travel together. Entire societies have been remade by the power of words. A declaration of independence, a speech of protest, a vow of solidarity, all are strings of sentences that turned history. Even whispered words, carried in secret, shared in defiance, have toppled systems once thought unmovable. Words do not merely describe worlds, they can tear them down and build them anew. In our private lives, the same truth holds. A simple "I forgive you" can change a relationship forever. A long postponed "I'm proud of you" can heal old wounds. A confession of love can open an entirely new chapter of life. These are not just words. They are doors, thresholds, beginnings. This is why we must treat language with reverence. To speak is to shape. To stay silent is also to shape. Both actions create realities, whether we intend them to or not. And when regret comes, it is not to condemn us but to remind us that we are builders, and that building can begin again at any moment. In the end, to say that words become worlds is not a metaphor but a truth. Every sentence is construction, every silence an unfinished possibility. Our task is to choose wisely, to build carefully, and to risk creation even when afraid. For in daring to speak, however imperfectly, we discover that the worlds we longed for have been waiting all along to be born. Every book must come to an end, yet the human story does not. Life itself is a manuscript without finality, written day by day in choices, silences, and words. If conversation never truly ends, then no chapter, no volume, can ever claim the last word. Instead, each ending is only a pause, a turning of the page toward what comes next. We often think of regret as the closing of a door, but it is better understood as a bookmark. It marks the place where we stopped speaking, the point where the story feels incomplete. When the words return to us in solitude, they are an invitation to re-enter the narrative, to continue writing what was left unsaid. The page is not torn out, it waits for us to resume. This is the strange mercy of time. While moments cannot be repeated, conversations can be renewed. A letter written years later can finish a dialogue thought abandoned. An apology delivered late can still heal. Even words spoken after someone is gone, offered in prayer, in memory, in confession, can ease the silence. The story continues, even if the setting has changed. To see life as an endless page is to realize that our words and silences live longer than we do. They ripple outward, shaping the lives of others, carried forward in memory, sometimes even passed down like heirlooms. The sentences we choose to speak may outlast us, reminding those we leave behind of who we were and what we loved. And yet, the endless page is not meant to burden us with perfection. No author writes flawlessly, no life speaks without error. Crossed out lines, unfinished drafts, moments of silence, all belong to the same manuscript. What matters is not that we capture every thought in perfect language, but that we dare to write honestly, returning again and again to the page. Every silence has its place. Not all gaps must be filled. Some pages are made richer by what is left blank, just as some relationships are deepened by the quiet that needs no words. But other silences ache to be broken, and part of our wisdom lies in discerning the difference. The endless page is not uniform, it is a balance of ink and space, speech and pause. If regret is the teacher, then courage is the pen. Each time we return to a conversation, each time we risk honesty, each time we choose to speak from the heart, we add another line to the story. And the beauty is that the story is never closed. There is always another chance to write, another opportunity to finish the sentence we once abandoned. Even in our final days, the page continues. Words spoken in farewell may become the most enduring. A whispered blessing, a final apology, a last expression of love, all can echo long after the voice is gone. The endless page is not endless because we live forever, but because our words do. They travel farther than we know, outliving our time, shaping others' lives beyond our sight. Perhaps this is why silence itself feels sacred. It is the blank space where new words might still be written. To live with awareness of the endless page is to see every day as a chance to add something meaningful, however small. A sentence of kindness, a paragraph of truth, a page of courage, these are the building blocks of a life worth remembering. So let this book end by not ending. The chapters here are only a beginning, a framework of reflections meant to lead into your own. The pen now passes to you. The page is open, waiting. Whatever you regret, whatever you withhold, whatever you still long to say, it can still be written. For the conversation continues, and the page, endless as time, belongs to you.